For nearly 1,000 years, the British royal family has shaped the fate of nations, commanded empires, and survived conspiracies that would have destroyed any other dynasty. From warrior kings crowned on blood-soaked battlefields to queens who transformed the world through diplomacy and sheer force of will, the British monarchy is a living saga of ambition, betrayal, love, sacrifice, and unimaginable power. Each crown carried triumph and tragedy, every monarch leaving a mark on history that echoed far beyond their lifetime. Their rise was legendary. Their survival, nothing short of miraculous. Long before the British Empire stretched across continents, before royal crowns glittered under golden chandeliers, and before the monarchy became the most recognized royal institution on earth, the roots of Britain's legendary kings and queens began in a world ruled by warfare, shifting alliances, and fragile power. The story begins in the shadowy early medieval period, when Britain was a land divided into rival kingdoms, Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, and others whose names have faded from memory. It was an age when leadership was earned through the sword, and survival depended on courage and cunning. Out of this chaos rose a family whose bloodline would someday dominate the world, the House of Wessex. At the center of this rising dynasty was a young boy named Alfred, later known as Alfred the Great. Born in 849 AD, Alfred was never meant to be king. He had 3 older brothers destined to rule before him, but destiny has a way of choosing those who do not choose themselves. While other royal children studied war, Alfred was drawn to books, stories, and the wisdom of scholars. His mother once promised a beautifully decorated book to whichever of her sons could learn to read it first. Alfred, driven by curiosity and ambition, claimed it. Yet, the calm of childhood did not last. Britain faced the greatest threat of the era, the Viking invasions. These Norse warriors swept across the land, burning towns, stealing treasures, and destroying royal strongholds. One by one, Alfred's older brothers died fighting them. Eventually, the crown fell onto his reluctant but determined head. When Alfred became king, the Viking armies were stronger than ever. England was collapsing. Many believed the monarchy itself would fall. The British royal bloodline, fragile and young, seemed destined for extinction. But Alfred became the king Britain desperately needed. His first challenge was survival. In 878 AD, the Vikings launched a surprise attack that forced Alfred into hiding in the swamps of Uth. For months, he lived like a fugitive, gathering loyal soldiers in secret while the enemy claimed his land. It was here, in the muddy marshlands, that the true spirit of the British monarchy was born, not of luxury or privilege, but of resilience. Alfred devised a bold plan. Instead of meeting the Vikings head-on, he studied their tactics, their weaknesses, their movements. He adapted, he innovated, and he created a new kind of army, fast, mobile, and strategically trained. When the final battle arrived, Alfred crushed the Viking leader Guthrum and forced a historic treaty that divided England into 2 regions, but secured peace for his people. It was not merely a military victory, it was the foundation of a kingdom. Under Alfred, the monarchy gained new power. He built fortified towns, known as burhs, that protected the population. He established a navy to defend the coast. He reformed laws, supported education, and promoted literacy to strengthen the nation from within. Slowly, England transformed from broken territories into a united kingdom. Alfred's reign sparked a legacy of leadership, discipline, and survival that would be passed down through his descendants. His son, Edward the Elder, and grandson, Athelstan, continued his mission, expanding the kingdom, strengthening royal authority, and forging alliances that positioned the monarchy as the core of English identity. By the 10th century, the influence of the British royal family was undeniable. Their bloodline carried the promise of unity. Their crown represented hope in a world defined by uncertainty, and their dynasty had begun a journey that would lead to the rise of some of history's most extraordinary kings and queens. But greatness always invites danger. Behind every victory was a conspiracy. Behind every alliance was betrayal. Behind every triumph was a rival waiting to strike. And so the saga continued. As the descendants of Alfred the Great carried his mission forward, England began to evolve into something greater than a mere land of tribes. became a nation with a shared identity. Yet, the rise of a kingdom always attracts shadows. While the monarchy gained power, so too grew the ambition of rivals. By the year 1066, the English throne was the most coveted seat in Western Europe, and it was here that one of the most defining events in British royal history unfolded: the Norman Conquest. King Edward the Confessor, a distant descendant of Alfred, ruled peacefully but left behind a deadly problem. He died without an heir. 3 powerful men claimed to the throne: Harold Godwinson, England's strongest noble; Harold Hardrada, the fearsome Viking king of Norway; William, the Duke of Normandy, who claimed Edward had promised him the crown years earlier. Edward's death ignited one of history's greatest conspiracies, a secret battle for legitimacy. Letters vanished, promises were whispered, alliances flipped, and oaths were broken. Each contender believed the throne was rightfully theirs, and each was ready to spill oceans of blood to claim it. Harold Godwinson took the crown first, but William of Normandy insisted that Harold had sworn a sacred oath to support William's claim and now had betrayed him. Intocedes, betrayals senti, jas offensivit, was an act punished by divine retribution. William declared that God himself supported his invasion. Thus began the Norman Conquest, a moment that would permanently transform the monarchy. Harold fought off one invasion, defeating Harold Hardrada in a brutal battle at Stamford Bridge, but fate played its cruelest trick. As Harold marched south to defend England again, William's army landed on the coast. At the Battle of Hastings, the two forces clashed in a fight that lasted an entire day. Arrows rained from the sky, shields shattered, horses fell, and the battlefield turned into a graveyard. When dead Harold lay dead, the Anglo-Saxon rule was over. William the Conqueror took the throne, marking the beginning of the Norman dynasty, a new chapter in the monarchy, defined by power, control, and radical change. Under William, the monarchy grew stronger than ever before. He introduced the feudal system, building a network of loyalty where every noble owed land, taxes, and military service to the king. The king's word became law. No one could challenge him without facing catastrophic consequences. But absolute power breeds absolute fear. William never trusted the nobles he ruled. He built castles, fortresses of stone and intimidation across England. More than 1,000 were constructed, symbols of the monarchy's iron grip. Towering walls, moats, and armed guards reminded everyone the crown was untouchable. Yet, even a king feared conspiracies. Whispers spread among Anglo-Saxon rebels who wanted their land back. Norman barons plotted secretly for more power. Enemies abroad waited for William to show weakness. The king spent much of his reign crushing rebellions, silencing threats, and tightening control. Despite the unrest, William's reign brought something monumental: a detailed survey of all of England, known as the Domesday Book. This book recorded every village, every person, every piece of land, every animal, and every tax. It was the most ambitious administrative project Europe had ever seen. With it, the monarchy gained unprecedented knowledge and control, knowledge that meant power. Still, William's success came at the price of paranoia. His final years were spent battling rebellions and fighting wars in France. When he died in 1087, chaos struck again. His sons fought bitterly over the throne, tearing apart the kingdom their father had built. Brothers turned against brothers. Nobles rebelled. Alliances collapsed. The crown, meant to symbolize unity, became the center of deadly disputes. And yet, through this turbulent era, the monarchy never fell. Why? Because the institution itself became stronger than any single person. The throne had become sacred. The crown had become destiny, and the royal bloodline now carried the weight of a rising empire. As the Normans tightened their grip on England, a new dynasty rose centuries later. Their reign would bring legendary kings, deadly rivalries, royal murders, and political brilliance that would push the monarchy into its next powerful age. But their path to glory was soaked in betrayal, ambition, and conspiracies that still echo through history. With the Normans firmly established, a new royal bloodline soon took control, one that would become synonymous with brilliance, brutality, and towering ambition. This was the Plantagenet dynasty, a family whose story shaped the very backbone of British history for over 3 centuries. It all began with Henry II, a king of unmatched intelligence and unmatched temper. He inherited a fractured kingdom and transformed it into one of the most powerful realms in medieval Europe. Henry introduced legal reforms that became the foundation of the English justice system, influencing present-day American and European law. He was a builder, a strategist, and a visionary, but he was also a man ruled by fierce passions. His marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most powerful women in European history, brought vast territories under the English crown. Together, they created an empire stretching from Scotland to Spain. But behind the royal facade, their marriage crumbled into bitterness and rebellion. Their sons, Henry the Young King, Richard the Lionheart, Geoffrey, and John, grew up surrounded by political manipulation, jealousy, and ambition. The royal court became a battleground where sons rebelled against their father, where Eleanor supported uprisings, and where the family tore itself apart. Out of these conflicts rose one of England's greatest heroes, Richard the Lionheart. Richard was a warrior, king fearless, charismatic, and obsessed with glory. He spent only a few months in England during his reign, choosing instead to fight in the Crusades, battling across the Middle East against the legendary leader Saladin. Richard's victories made him a legend, yet his long absence left England vulnerable. During Richard's captivity in Europe, his brother King John took the throne. John, often remembered as one of the worst kings in English history, ruled through fear and greed. He imposed heavy taxes, seized lands, and punished nobles who questioned him. His tyranny sparked one of the most important events in British history, the creation of the Magna Carta in 1215. Forced by angry barons, John signed this revolutionary document, which limited the king's power and planted the earliest seeds of constitutional rule. Though John tried to ignore it, the idea couldn't be destroyed. For the first time, the monarchy had boundaries. After John's chaotic reign ended, the crown passed to the young Henry III, and later to his son, Edward I, a king remembered as a brilliant administrator and ruthless conqueror. Edward I sought to unify the British Isles under one crown. He waged brutal wars in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Castles rose across the land, towering symbols of English dominance. Yet resistance grew, especially in Scotland, where iconic leaders like William Wallace and later Robert the Bruce fought fiercely for freedom. The Plantagenets expanded England's power, but also lit the flames of rebellion that would last centuries. Then came Edward III, under whose reign England entered its golden medieval age. His court was rich, glamorous, and politically powerful. He launched the 100 Years' War against France, a conflict that would define an era. Chivalry, the idea of English identity strengthened, and from this war emerged a heroine whose name still echoes through time, Joan of Arc. Her eyes challenged English dominance and showed how deeply intertwined the Plantagenet legacy was with European destiny. But the greatest tragedy of the era came from within the royal family itself. Edward III's sons and grandsons fought viciously over succession. Their greed and rivalry plunged England into civil war, devastating conflict known as the Wars of the Roses. Two branches of the same Plantagenet bloodline, the House of Lancaster Red Rose and the House of York White Rose, claimed the throne. This was no ordinary war. It was family against family, brother against brother, cousin against cousin. Betrayals were constant. Loyalties shifted like shadows. Kings rose and fell in rapid succession. Towers filled with prisoners, fields filled with bodies. The monarchy itself seemed on the brink of collapse. And then, from the ashes of the war, a single man emerged to end the chaos. Henry Tudor, the man destined to reshape the monarchy forever. His victory at the Battle of Bosworth ended Plantagenet rule and began the Tudor dynasty, a dynasty that would bring unforgettable figures. Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, and a new era of royal reinvention. Yet the Plantagenets, with their unparalleled blend of genius, brutality, brilliance, and tragedy, had left behind a legacy that permanently transformed the monarchy. They built laws that still endure, They expanded the realm. They defined the crown as both a political force and a cultural symbol. And they proved that the greatest threat to the British monarchy often came from within its own bloodline. As the new century dawned, the British royal family stood at a crossroads. The empire stretched across continents, yet the world was changing faster than any monarch had ever experienced. Industrial machines roared louder than the church bells of old. Ships, powered by steam, replaced wooden fleets, and ordinary citizens, boldened by education and politics, began demanding a voice in national affairs. Inside Buckingham Palace, the weight of centuries-old tradition pressed against the unstoppable tide of modernity, threatening to crack the very foundation on which royal power had stood for generations. Yet, even in this shifting world, the monarchy learned to adapt. Advisors whispered of public relations. Photographers captured royal moments for newspapers, and kings realized that popularity had become as essential as bloodline. Queens no longer ruled through fear or divine command, but through emotional connection, appearing in hospitals, speaking to workers, mingling with crowds during crises. The crown's power was no longer military. It became symbolic, cultural, and deeply psychological. Within the palace walls, tension brewed between old-guard aristocrats and young royals eager to embrace change. Some feared that bending to public expectations would strip the monarchy of its mystique. Others argued that survival demanded evil, and behind closed doors, the royal family's personal struggles, marriages under public pressure, children rebelling against tradition, siblings fighting for approval added a dramatic human element to a dynasty often portrayed as flawless. Still, their greatest challenge came not from politics or family drama, but from the public's growing hunger for transparency. Every mistake was magnified. Every scandal traveled farther than royal messengers ever could. And yet, through charm, strategy, and the ability to reinvent their image again and again, the British monarchy persisted. They learned that power in the modern world came not from ruling people, but from representing something larger. Stability, heritage, and an unbroken chain stretching back 1,000 years. The world may have changed, but the royals, through careful reinvention, ensured that they remained relevant. Their survival was not an accident. It was a masterclass in adaptation. And as political empires rose and fell, the crown continued to shine, symbolizing something that no revolution or war could fully erase: the enduring fascination with royal power, mystery, and legacy. By the mid-20th century, the British royal family faced a world unlike anything their ancestors could have imagined. Airplanes roared over London. Global wars had reshaped political borders. And ordinary people on Cecil bricks were now citizens with opinions, rights, and a powerful voice in the media. The monarchy's survival depended on its ability not just to endure, but to transform. Within the palace, a new generation rose, one more aware than ever that the crown was no longer an unquestioned symbol of divine authority, but a fragile institution, held together by tradition, public admiration, and careful diplomacy. Every gesture mattered. Every word spoken by a king or queen could affect millions. And yet underneath the polished exterior, the royal family struggled with the same human emotions that had plagued monarchs for centuries. Fear of failure, pressured to live up to predecessors, loneliness behind immense responsibility, and the constant burden of being watched. The modern age brought an unprecedented challenge: television. Suddenly, the monarchy could be seen not only in grand ceremonies, but in unguarded moments. Cameras caught smiles, frowns, tensions between family members. The royal mystiquence, built on distance, now depended on relatability. Some royals adapted easily, others felt suffocated. The public no longer wanted statues, they wanted people, and the monarchy had to become both. During global conflicts, royal speeches became lifelines of hope, broadcast across radios into homes shaken by fear. When soldiers marched to war, they did so believing the crown represented unity. When the nation mourned, it looked to the monarchy for strength. This emotional relationship between ruler and people grew into the monarchy's new power-soft influence, built on presence rather than commands. Yet the post-war era also brought unprecedented scrutiny. Every relationship, every marriage, every private disagreement became public property. Newspapers turned royal lives into headlines. Photographers camped outside palaces, and the family found itself constantly negotiating between duty and personal happiness. Choosing love could spark scandal. Choosing tradition could cause heartbreak. It was a balancing act no throne training could fully prepare them for. Still, the royals endured. They opened their homes, showed vulnerability, and embraced charitable causes that resonated with millions. Hospitals, schools, environmental projects, global diplomacy. The monarchy evolved into a force of goodwill rather than governance, and the public, in turn, found comfort in the continuity the crown provided. In an ever-changing world, the royals became a bridge between history and the future. Through reinvention, resilience, and a deep understanding of public emotion, the British royal family stepped into the modern age, not as rulers of an empire, but as guardians of a legacy, one that remained powerfully alive in the hearts of the people. As Britain moved deeper into the 20th and 21st centuries, the monarchy's role shifted even further. Gone were the days of commanding armies and shaping laws through sheer authority. Instead, the royal family became symbols, living embodiments of British identity, unity, and tradition. But the path to maintaining this symbolic power was far more complex than it seemed from the outside. Inside the palace walls, every generation faced new storms, political scandals, shifting public expectations, and the rise of global media all threatened the stability of the crown. Yet the monarchy had one extraordinary strength: its ability to adapt without abandoning its roots. It balanced centuries-old rituals with modern transparency, creating a unique blend of ancient prestige and contemporary relevance. State dinners, once attended only by nobles, now welcomed scientists, humanitarian leaders, athletes, and activists. Royal tours evolved into diplomatic missions focused on peace, climate action, and global cooperation. With every handshake, bow, and speech, the monarchy reinvented itself for a world that valued connection over conquest. But this evolution came with emotional costs. Members of the royal family carried the overwhelming pressure of perfection. A single mistake, one comment, one misstep, one leaked conversation could ignite international controversy. Younger royals faced a different challenge: the desire to live ordinary lives while trapped inside extraordinary expectations. Every friendship, relationship, and moment of vulnerability risked becoming breaking news. Privacy was a luxury none of them truly had. Yet despite the burdens, the monarchy continued to stand firm because its greatest power was not political, it was human. It represented stability through wars, pandemics, economic crisis, and cultural upheaval. When the nation celebrated, the royals celebrated with them. When the nation grieved, the royals grieved with them. The crown became a shared national heartbeat, connecting the past to the present, history to hope. And as centuries of kings and queens came and went, the British people saw something remarkable. The monarchy wasn't just a family. It was a story, one that stretched across time, carried by individuals who inherited not only privilege, but pressure, duty, and the weight of a 1,000-year legacy. Through reinvention, courage, and their uncanny ability to rise again after every storm, the royal family etched their place in modern history. Their influence no longer depended on military might or political control, but on something far more enduring: symbolic power, emotional connection, and the unwavering loyalty of a nation that still found meaning in the crown. By the dawn of the 21st century, the British royal family had become more than an institution. It had become a global symbol of continuity in a rapidly changing world. Cameras followed their every step. Millions dissected their every word, and the weight of expectations grew heavier with each generation. Inside Buckingham Palace, a quiet revolution was unfolding. Advisors updated century-old protocols. Digital experts joined the staff, and the monarchy slowly reshaped itself for an internet-driven era. Royal traditions were preserved but softened, modernized, and reframed so younger audiences could feel connected rather than distanced. Yet modernity brought new storms. The monarchy found itself at the center of every cultural debate: privacy, mental health, national identity, racism, political neutrality, and global responsibility. The younger royals were expected to embody compassion, awareness, and authenticity, qualities never demanded of their ancestors. Every public appearance required balance, graceful yet relatable, traditional yet modern, reserved yet open. Some handled this pressure with extraordinary poise. Their charity work reshaped global conversations on climate change, poverty, and mental wellness. Diplomacy tours strengthened connections with nations that once formed the empire, now united through dialogue rather than dominance. The royal family was no longer the head of an empire. They were ambassadors of history, symbols of unity, and representatives of a new, softer British influence. But the pressures of fame were relentless. Scandals erupted, relationships fractured, and disagreements between senior and junior royals spilled into public view. For the first time in centuries, internal tensions were not hidden behind palace walls. They were broadcast across television networks, YouTube channels, and social media feeds. And in the digital age, the public didn't just observe, they judged. Still, the monarchy endured these storms as it had endured countless storms before. By adjusting, understanding, and evolving. When the nation grieved, the royals stood with them. When the nation celebrated, the royals led from the balcony. Their presence, steady and symbolic, reminded people that, although times change, identity endures. In quieter moments, the royal family reflected on their legacy. They understood they were not simply inheriting titles, they were inheriting centuries of triumphs and mistakes, alliances and betrayals, responsibilities and expectations. Their duty was not to rule, but to represent, to inspire, not command, to serve, not dominate. And through this understanding, a new era of monarchy emerged, one rooted in transparency, compassion, and cultural influence, rather than authority. It was no longer the story of crowns, conquests, or empires. It was the story of people, human beings, born into a spotlight brighter than any throne room chandelier, tasked with carrying history while shaping the future. This is the evolution of the British royal family, a line of legendary kings and queens who, across centuries, transformed from empire builders to global icons, a dynasty that learned one profound truth. Conclusion: legacy of the British royal family. The story of the British royal family is not merely a chronicle of kings and queens. It is the story of resilience, adaptation, and enduring influence, from the medieval thrones to modern palaces. Each monarch faced the same challenge, balancing tradition with transformation, authority with diplomacy, and personal desire with public duty. Centuries of strategic marriages, political alliances, and cultural stewardship allowed the monarchy to survive revolutions, wars, and societal upheavals. The family's ability to adapt, whether by embracing constitutional limits, engaging with modern media, or championing humanitarian causes, ensured its relevance in a rapidly changing world. Today, the monarchy is a symbol, a living bridge between past and present. Its influence extends beyond politics, shaping culture, diplomacy, and national identity. While crowns may not command armies as they once did, the power of the British royal family lies in its ability to inspire, unify, and endure. Ultimately, their legacy is clear. The British monarchy remains one of the world's most remarkable institutions, a testament to the delicate art of survival, the weight of history, and the enduring strength of purpose.